So here we are with the next task, and I have copied the text here so we can have a look and see if we can figure out what we are supposed to do. And if we read the text, we see that alright, the family member has asked us for help. They want a script that they can use at a party, and it shall work as described here. And this is quite often the case, that we get a description from someone who maybe isn't into the technical details that much. They just describe what they want, so we have to try to decode what they actually want. And let's see what it says here. We're going to play a game where everyone's gonna try to guess a secret number. Okay, let me mark that. So that is something that it tells us that the game that they're going to play, that's something that is going to happen. So that's something our script must take care of. And then it says that all the guests shall write their names and their guess in a text file, and then they write the name on one line and the guess on another. Here comes something that is more interesting for us, because here it says that the script shall use this text file when deciding who guessed the correct number. Let me mark that too. So far we have figured out that it's some kind of guessing game. There's going to be a secret number, and then there's going to be a text file which contains entries of a name and their guess. The script is going to read the file and see if it can figure out who guessed the right number, if anyone. And then there are some clarifications here. Let's see what we can find out from them. Then the script shall check all guesses against the secret number. Okay, so we have already covered that we should check them. Only the names of the persons who guessed correctly shall be displayed. So not the actual guess, but only their name. Or maybe I should mark only the names here so we remember that. And the next one here is the same as we read before, that the name and guess, they should be on separate lines in the text file. And finally it says that the secret number can be entered manually when the script is run or automatically. So I think we can mark the one that we are planning to use here, and I'll mark secret number and automatically. I think that's what we're going to go with. So that when this script starts, it will generate a secret number. After that, it's going to read a text file, and for all the entries, it's going to check them against this secret number that we have generated and see if they manage to guess the correct one. Let's see if we can transfer what we have learned from the text onto a picture or a diagram. I'm going to draw a flow chart here, and I'm going to start drawing it, and I'm going to stop after a little while and we can see what I've done. Okay, so far what we got here is that, alright, we're going to have a main function. The first thing we do when we call the main function is to generate a random target. That is the secret number that was talked about here. After we have generated that, it told us somewhere here in the text that we were to look in a text file. So we need to open that text file. Okay, if we open it, my idea is that we're going to have some form of loop that checks if there are more entries in the file. If there is, we're going to handle them here. But for now, let's imagine that there are no more entries. Then what we do, then we're finished, then we close the file and we end the script or return from the main function here. But now, alright, this is one way to go through the script or the main function, and that is if there are no more entries. But it becomes much more interesting if there are entries in the file. So let's add them here. If we stop here and check what we have, Okay, so we said before that when we call the main function, we generate a random target, we open the text file, and then we check if there are more entries in the file. And if that is true, then we read the next name from the file. And then we check if that name that we read from the file, if that is empty, it means that there are no more entries in the text file. So what's going to happen then is that we're going to go back, come back here and check if there are no more entries. But alright, so we have this bit of the script here. If we try to read a name but there are no more entries, then we are finished and we should close the file. But alright, what if we try to read a name from the file? Then the next thing that we should do is the thing that we talked about here, that in the file we have name on one line and then the guess on the next line. So if we have managed to read a name, then it's time to read the guess. So that's what we're going to do here. And when we have read the guess, then we can also compare it to our target, to the secret number, and see if they match. So that's what I'm going to add here now. Okay, let's take a look at what we have here. I've finished this bit, but I haven't cleaned it up yet. But I think we can read the script and see if we have understood it correct, and then I can clean it up in the end. Alright, so when we call the main function, we generate a random number. That is the secret number that we are going to try to guess, or that all the guests are trying to guess. After that, we open a file which contains all the guesses, and it's described here that it should be in a text file. The format is the name on the first line and the guess on the second line. And then, as long as there are more entries in the text file, we are going to read the name, and if there are no more names, it means that we have finished. There are no more entries, which means we go back and there are no more entries, meaning that we close the file and we return from the main function. But now let's imagine that there is a name in the file. What do we do then? Then we read that person's guess. We compare that guess to the target, the secret number. If it is the same, if they are equal, what we do is that we display that name because they did guess the correct number. And if we display it, then we go back and we check if there are more entries in the file. But if this guess is wrong, we don't display the name. Instead, we just go back and check if there are more entries. Now let me clean this up and then we can see how it looks in the end. There we go. After having fiddled too much with it, I think I'm happy with it now, and it's pretty much the same as it was when we talked about it. I have just cleaned it up a little bit. So this is what we're going to use later on when we're going to implement this task. But what you could do now that you are finished with the diagram here, you could always go back and check against what you marked and against the text that this corresponds to what we were trying to solve. And if I look at it, I think this corresponds to it, and it is a diagram that I can understand. But as I have said many times, it is important that the diagram that you create is something that you understand, but so that when you're trying to implement the task later, this diagram is a help for you to remember how to solve it.